Hello and welcome back. This is our second last video. I can't believe we've come this far in this entire course. So yeah, let's jump into real world roles in software engineering. Now, for us, software engineering often means us as a software engineer or a software developer, but there's actually many more roles that exist within this sort of ecosystem. Now, having these different roles and understanding what they actually mean is incredibly helpful. This allows us to define expectations, like clarifying responsibilities, who gets to make decisions over what, and it allows us to set performance standards for each of the different roles. It also gives us growth paths, right? This defines skills needed to move to the next level, whether that means we're going from a software development engineer to a principal engineer or a quality assurance agent to a technical analyst. It also means that we get to define things that will work for us in terms of a hiring fit. So we can ensure that candidates are matching the role's needs. We can have a good team structure that's very nice and clear for new hires. And it means that everybody gets to work on stuff that they actually feel best suits their own strengths. So here's just a list of potential roles or titles that may exist within a company, and titles will vary. We have sysadmins, IT ops, ops security, AI security, pen testing engineer, security engineer, system devs, front end devs, back end devs, full stack devs, graphics designers, software development engineers, software developers, senior developers, a software development engineer in test, quality assurance, business analyst. The A's don't mean the same thing. How confusing. Software development managers, principal managers, project leads, tech leads, technical program managers, principal engineers, and many more. And it can become incredibly overwhelming to know what jobs to apply for or what different roles might hold, because each company might use the terms differently. A software engineer two may mean one thing at one company and mean something different at another. So it's not just about understanding the titles, we have to understand the responsibilities as well. And many companies will have these roles evolve as projects and teams grow. So it can become pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. Now, core development roles usually, this is all usually, fall into one of the following categories. We've got a front end developer. This person usually does like user interface stuff and client side logic. A back end developer who's in charge of the server side logic, APIs, and integrations. A full stack developer, which would then encompass somebody who could work in both the front and back end. A software developer, SDE. This would be a generalist coder, often also falls under full stack developer. Just depends on the company. A senior developer, this is an experienced developer who has a better understanding of how code and industry code bases might work. They have deeper design and mentorship duties. And then there is a principal engineer. This would be a senior technical authority, and they often end up working across multiple teams. Next, we have this specialized development category. These would be sysdevs, who are developers that work with system level software, scripting, tools, stuff like that. We have graphics developers that focus on rendering, animation, visual systems, and then software development in test, software development engineer in test. This is an individual whose focus is on automated tests, building testing frameworks, quality assurance from the technical side. And again, this is not, I'll have to keep saying it, this is not all encompassing. There are some more modern additions to sort of the developer role, we'll say environment, and like as our world and technical industry continues to evolve, the types of specialized roles also begins to evolve. We have roles like mobile developer, somebody who would be doing iOS and Android apps, maybe native app work, maybe cross-platform app work. We have an embedded systems developer. This is somebody who's going to do like hardware level coding or infrastructure as code sort of work. And then there's machine learning engineers or data scientists, individuals who will apply machine learning and AI models in production, potentially experimentation, research, and development with those as well. Now, outside of core development roles, so roles that still live within our industry and our community, but not necessarily hands to keyboard coding roles, we've got quality assurance and testing roles. So these might be people who do some coding, but they're not doing core functionality. This may be manual and exploratory testing for quality assurance, whereas somebody who's like a software development engineer in test, they might be doing the automated testing, the testing framework, so still hands to keyboard coding. There's also performance testing engineers or system engineers. These are individuals who are doing load and stress testing, load balancing, performance testing, stuff like that within a project. Next, we have operations and deployment. These individuals often hold roles like DevOps engineer, in charge of the continuous integration and deployment pipelines, infrastructure automation. There's site reliability engineers who are in charge of doing things like uptime and scalability for products, monitoring products, watching network trafficking, stuff like that. And this bleeds into a sysadmin or an IT ops position where they do system administration, internal administration, and network management. Then we have design and user experience individuals. These are our UI or UX designers, as well as product designers. This sort of blends business requirements with what is it that we actually want to show on a page, right? Our interface layouts, the visual style. This can involve research. This can involve accessibility. This can be usability. This can be running focus groups with potential users. These are more frequently roles that step away from development, but that doesn't mean that they're not technical in nature, because they are. There's a lot of technical understanding required to do this job and do it well, because you have to understand what's possible to do from the technical standpoint. Nothing is quite as frustrating as meeting with a designer who has no technical background and says, "This is what I want you to do." And you, as a developer, know that's just not feasible from the implementation side. There's nothing quite as frustrating as that. So, yeah, so while these do extend sort of beyond core development, they're still technical roles in nature. And then we have strategic and managerial roles, right? We have an agile or team coordination type of role. We've got scrum masters and product owners. These are people who actually help facilitate the group, like velocity. So we have things like facilitating the agile scrum daily stand-ups. They're constantly looking to remove blockers from the developer pathways. They're making sure that the team is following the expected framework. We have product owners. They're in charge of actually managing the backlog and prioritization. So rather than housing all of these roles that you've been doing for the past however many weeks in your own projects, there is somebody whose job it is to prioritize those, to clarify those requirements, to make sure that all the information that devs need to do their job exists in the system already. We also have project and product management, where we have something like project managers that are overseeing delivery times and budget. We've got cross-team coordination potentially. We've got technical program managers. These are individuals who will manage multiple related projects. We also have analysis and business alignment. So this is where like a business analyst might come in. Their job is to bridge the business needs and technical solutions. They're going to write requirements and they're going to help validate the scope of a project. We also have software development managers who are going to oversee the development teams. This is part of that people manager potential role. They're in charge of hiring, performance management, career development, professional development, stuff like that. Now, different companies, like I said, have different structures, and it's hard to know ahead of time, but these are great questions when you go into your interview, because who actually makes up each level of team can vary by different companies. Here's some examples of possibilities. So here we can see that we have a Scrum team. The Scrum team does not include the business owners, the end users, or the domain expert, but rather the core dev team and the product owners. You'll notice that the core dev team is not just dev people. There are devs, right? But there's people sitting here. There's potentially solutions architects that are sitting at this table, and business analysts. Now, here's a different team structure. We can see here that our core dev team that falls underneath what the Scrum Master will be in charge of is going to be this team down here. It does still include our architect and our developers and our QA, but now we have DevOps and maybe our designers live underneath here. Those are all part of the same sort of meeting level, and the Scrum Master is in charge of that. We can see that the Scrum Master will talk with business analysts and product owners, but it's kind of all the information that comes from this team below is filtered through our Scrum Master, But all of this is considered our software development team, while really only the client is the one that lays on the outside. So again, a different type of collaborative structure. Teams will communicate in a lot of different ways. Some will use, as I've said, daily stand ups, quick, synchronous progress sort of check ins with what did we do yesterday? What are we doing today? What are we stuck on? That sort of situation. We have our sprint planning meetings and our retrospectives. We have code reviews, the shared tools we previously discussed in the last video, and of course, our documentation. Now, we can start to see how, with large complex projects, there are so many different roles and different expectations and different responsibilities and duties, and we need people to be on the same page. And this becomes an intractable problem if we're not going to document, if we're not going to follow our issue hygiene, if we don't know what the standards and protocols are going to be for our team and how the expectation of our level of communication is sort of set and met. So this is why in your group projects, you've been recommended to do, asynchronous check-ins 2 or 3 times a week. Of course, daily stand-ups are not going to be feasible, but there are other ways that, given our team structure, we can start to set our communication habits. Let's take one moment here to pause and reflect. It's honestly our final reflection before the last video, which is just one big reflection. I'd like you to go back through this slide set, this lecture deck, and pick a role or two, and ask yourself, what are you most interested in? But more importantly, really dig into why. What are the qualities and the criteria of those jobs that you are drawn to? Because this is going to help you when you go out looking for a job. What skills or experiences do you already possess that would allow you to sort of jump into those roles? And what skills do we right now need to grow so that we could do those roles? Thinking about sort of these categorically will allow you to understand how far you are into your potential future dream job, and how much more development and professional sort of working and development do we need to do to get there. I also want you to take a quick look back on this past term and in your group project and ask yourself, from that list of roles that we just looked at, what roles did you play in your project? Or what were there any roles that were like needed, like roles that we expected, but we didn't actually end up filling? Were there roles that you sort of unexpectedly ended up filling that you didn't think you were going to be the person in charge of testing, and here you are making sure all the testing gets done? This sort of look back is really important because it's going to allow you to pinpoint the skills to put on your resume. What roles did you sort of embody? What hats did you wear? What did you end up finding yourself doing because you were the only one who could, you enjoyed it, or you just took some initiative and did it because it had to get done, right? So now, after we've done those two things, we can make our connection to the future. How did your role this term align with your interests? Maybe it did and maybe it didn't. Maybe you realized, oh my God, I do not want to ever be in charge of testing. That sounds terrible. Or maybe you, like me, found out that testing is basically getting to break people's stuff and you really enjoy it. And that's a really fun role you didn't expect yourself to enjoy. Also, ask yourself, how might you seek out opportunities to try other roles in the future? If there are any roles that you didn't get to try out as part of this, where can we get those opportunities? If you're interested in DevOps and security and IT ops, maybe you want to go and take a networking course. Maybe you want to take software engineering too. Really taking an opportunity to reflect back on what went well, what didn't, and what we want more experience in, sort of like a daily scrum, but like a reflective term scrum, daily sync. Really lets you ask yourself, where can I make sure that I get to fill in those knowledge gaps before I graduate? Or maybe even after you graduate, right? Maybe there are courses or certifications you want to do. I want to say thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and I'm looking forward to recording and you watching my last video all about personal growth as a software developer. And I hope you have really enjoyed this term. I will see you in the last video. Bye, everybody.